So anyway, the structure of tonight is that David, so we've got David here. He's a trained educator in effective altruism. He's currently studying a Master's of Education, and he spent about a year and a half educating high school students about effective altruism concepts through Students for High Impact Charity. So we're very lucky to have David with us tonight. I'm about to hand off to David. David's going to give a short presentation about the main concepts of effective altruism and how effective altruists think about the world. And then after that, we're just going to have a Q&A about anything you guys had questions of. So I'm the president of the Effective Altruism chapter, and I'm going to give a talk about what we do at the club. That should take us to about 8:30. Then we're going to break into breakout rooms where we can maybe introduce each other, and we can also do more Q&A, and we can field some questions from you guys. And then we'll wrap it up, and everyone should be able to get into bed by 9 p.m., which will be really nice, I'm sure. Without further ado, I'll hand over to David.
Okay, thanks very much, Pat. Oh, well, good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining us. Hope it's not too, hope it doesn't feel too late for you. I've got just a short slideshow for you, so I will start sharing my screen. Here we go. Okay, can everyone see that all right? Brilliant. All right, come on, computer, work. Loading. Wow, this is, okay, there we go. Looks like it might have been too much heavy lifting for it, but no, I think it's going to be all right. Okay, so what is EA? I'm not really sure how much exposure you guys have had to effective altruism already, but very basically, for those who, well, what's going on? Those who don't know, it is essentially an ongoing research project with a global community around it. It's not any one particular organization. There's no like strict hierarchy to it or anything like that. But it's basically a lot of people, some all around the world who are concerned with many different cause areas. And the main connective tissue between them is that they're applying a rational and evidence-based approach to the question, how can we do the most good? Now, there we go. Yeah, more than any, so it's also cause neutral. But so what I mean by that is that more than any one particular cause area, effective altruism is tied to the idea that we should be flexible when it comes to figuring out what the best ways to do good are. So even if you might have heard of EA in relation to something in particular, like, oh, that's the thing where they care about farm animal welfare, or they're the guys that only promote earning to give or something like that, or hey, isn't that the game publisher or something like that? Yeah, perhaps I think our cause neutrality is perhaps what defines effective altruism more than any one cause, or more specifically the openness to updating what cause area we focus on, or what courses of action we focus on in the face of new reasoning or new evidence. And of course, this question, how can we do the most good? It's based upon the belief that we can quantify good, at least to some extent. And a very basic example of this would be in the way that we can measure longevity, or in other words, how long people live, and as well as their well-being, in relation to the implementation of a medical or public health intervention. This is well-being and longevity are often combined into a single unit, in fact, called quality adjusted life years. Just to explain in a little more detail what that is, if you were to live 1 year at 100% well-being, that would be one quality adjusted life year, or QALY, but also living 2 years at 50% well-being would also count as one QALY. But anyway, don't worry. Anyway, if you're not entirely, if you haven't quite got your head around that, that's okay. We're not really going to come back to that for now. There's a lot of other things that we were considering, like incorporating into this little introductory thing, but we thought perhaps one of the best concepts to introduce as part of this would be this basic framework that a lot of effective altruists use when it comes to prioritizing causes. Because there's these three basic factors that we generally consider as part of like applying this, rational evidence-based approach to deciding what the most pressing causes are, and or, well, what the most promising courses of action for having a positive impact might be. And those factors are, at least when it comes to problems, the scale, neglectedness, and tractability. So I'll just be giving you a very brief outline of each of those before, and that will be pretty much the entire introductory presentation that I'm doing. Anyway, so scale is essentially, my computer is quite slow at the moment. Sorry, there we go. So how big is the problem? That's essentially what we're asking when we're concerning ourselves with scale. And this bigness is a combination of how many people or other animals are affected by the problem, and how much are they affected. Now, on a related note, this isn't quite to do with scale, but sometimes when we're talking about problems, we're talking not only about problems that exist right now, but ones that might happen in the future, in which case we're talking about risks. So we wouldn't just be considering how bad a problem is, but how likely it is to occur as well. So that's probably something that we like to factor in as well. Neglectedness, posing that to phrase that as a question, would be how neglected is the problem? This is important to consider because of the economics notion of diminishing returns, which I've got illustrated very basically there with that graph. Why aren't my points coming up more responsibly? This is rather annoying. Sorry, there we go. So yeah, neglectedness is important because of diminishing returns. So in other words, often when we have more people working generally speaking, past a certain point, having more people working on a problem or throwing more money at it stops having such a great impact, as hopefully this graph illustrates. So what we really mean by people here is number of people working on a problem. So at first it's like, yeah, wow, that's really effective. But then after a certain point, okay, it stops being so useful to be throwing more bodies and or money at the problem. So yeah, I mean, obviously results with that will vary depending on the cause, but that's often the case. And it's often one that doesn't seem to be considered. A lot of people often tend to just consider how big the problem is and not necessarily how much is being done about it already. But we think that can drastically change how pressing the matter is. There may be some significantly smaller causes which are actually more pressing than really big ones, just by virtue of being so neglected. And the last main factor that we consider, which is perhaps the trickiest one, is tractability, or in other words, how much can we actually do about the problem? Now, I think we can divide this into three smaller questions. So more specifically, we can ask ourselves, is there a proven intervention for alleviating the problem? If not, is there a promising intervention that's worth testing? Or is there a course of action with a small chance of a massive impact? In other words, where even if there's almost no chance of your desired outcome, if that outcome has such incredible value, maybe it's still worth making that gamble. And if the answer to all of those questions is no in relation to a particular cause, then yeah, it's probably an intractable problem and not really worth considering, at least for the time being. So scale, neglectedness, and tractability, those are the three main things. Hang on, I'll stop screen sharing now because that one's not really relevant anymore. Those are the three main factors that effective altruists often consider when it comes to prioritizing causes. And it can lead to some rather surprising results. And in a lot of cases, it may well mean that if you engage with that process, using that framework to assess causes, it may well significantly reframe things for you. In particular, you may well find that causes that seem the most pressing to you are often ones that are not especially well known. So yeah, we think it's a very worthwhile framework for engaging with. I had a note there on that last slide to give you guys some links if you wanted to follow up on various things in your own time. I'll just be chucking those in the chat now. Hopefully the format they're in isn't so weird that they, wait, hang on, sorry, bear with me a moment. Okay, this might be a little slower, but that's okay because I can introduce them one by one. So if you do want to chase up on more effective altruism stuff in your own time, these are perhaps some of the more relevant links that I think, oh, stuff came up already. That's weird. Anyway, so when it comes to giving money, that's of course one of the effective actions we can take, and I dare say one that we can all do at least a little bit, regardless of what direct work we might be doing. I've listed the websites of a few independent charity evaluators there for you. GiveWell deals with human global health and development issues. Animal Charity Evaluators deals, surprise, surprise, with animal charities. Most of their recommendations are concerning farm animal welfare, though there is a growing movement regarding wild animal welfare as well. And one of their top recommendations now does research on that. And there's also Founders Pledge, which has much of the same recommendations as the first two, but it does deal with a wider range of causes, including climate change, things like policy research and some other stuff as well. So yeah, I especially and some stuff related to catastrophic risks as well, including things like pandemic preparedness, which of course has become slightly more topical in the past year or so. If you're interested more specifically in what you might be able to do with your career path, not just with your money, 80,000 hours is probably the one and only place to really visit for that these days. There's some really good general info general info on the page regarding how you can be trying to find work to do that is both effectively addressing one of these a particularly pressing issue, but that's also well suited to your skills and interests. Patrick's quite a fan, it seems. For anyone who just and also for anyone who wants to just read more about, to engage more with the global EA community more generally and see what's topical, like within the global community, you might enjoy reading stuff on the forum, where there's often articles being published by various folk on a myriad of different issues. And I think that's about all I have to say. So I will stop talking and hand it back to Patrick.
Awesome. Thank you very much, David. Really great presentation. Claps to David. Thank you very much. Okay, so that concludes the if you arrived midway. So David was just giving a general explanation of what the idea of effective altruism is. And I will now give an explanation of what we actually do at the club. So I just want to say on the presentation, effective altruism is a really deep concept. When you take the idea of trying to do good in the most effective way possible, it's difficult to summarize everything that's about in a really short amount of time. So we've essentially just tried to give you a taste, and we hope that if you found that interesting at all, that you might go further and look at that more deeply, because there is a lot of material there, which is difficult to cover in a short amount of time. And the resources that David provided are a really good place to start. So now talking about what we do at the club, I think we can categorize our activities into 4 main activities. So socials, we have a socials team at Melbourne Uni that runs social events pretty regularly. I think we're aiming to run a public social event once every 2 weeks or so during the semester. But as well, within the community, we've got about 20 people running the club. There's a lot of informal socializing that goes on pretty often. So if you come in and you make a few friends, then I think it's a really good community to be a part of. I actually want to stress this point. I think that something I wish that someone had told me when I first came to uni is that the community of people you decide to commit yourself to can be really important and can really change the way you think about the world and change your habits and your beliefs. I would say generally the community at Melbourne Uni for effective altruism is really good if you're a person who wants to do good, but also is just like interested in ideas and is open to hearing new perspectives and talking about interesting things. So I think the strongest things about the effective altruism community is the kindness. I think it's a bit weird thing to say, but I think that genuinely the people in the community are all very kind and compassionate and like care about others. So I think that's a really key quality, and also just a little bit weird. So people are open to hearing about different ideas, and I think that's a really good quality for me, at least. And I found that Effective Altruism Melbourne Uni, it's been a really warm place to develop in. It's also a very diverse group. We've got people, international students, people who are doing master's degrees, all walks of life. I know it's not the best indication that, you know, I'm a white male and then I hand it over to David, who's also a white male, and hand it back to me. But I promise that is not indicative of the diversity of the group. It is, I wanted to avoid that, but unfortunately we're not able to. Anyway, that's the socials aspect. Importantly, the scholars program. If you were interested in the ideas that David was talking about and you want to explore that further, the idea of doing good better in your own life, for the first time ever, we are running a Effective Altruism Scholars program. It is an 8-week course that's going to be running from week 3 to week 11, in which you do weekly readings on different areas in effective altruism and doing the most good possible. And then you also have a weekly discussion group guided by a moderator. Applications for that are due at the end of next week. If you have any questions about that, please feel free to reach out to the page or reach out to me. We've also got an education director, Kale, who would love to talk to you about that. So yeah, that's coming up, and we're really excited about that. The program started in Harvard, and we're the first people club in the Southern Hemisphere to be doing it. So it is really exciting. In terms of careers, we also run career events. So we're going to be running a few events this semester that are about trying to have high impact careers. So we're going to have a speaker from a specific field in a high impact cause area come and talk to us about their experience and how you might follow that path. And then another really big thing we do at the club is we run one-on-ones. We found that having one-on-one conversations is one of the most effective ways to introduce people to the ideas, but also just introduce them to the community. So we're going to make a link available, which makes it really easy to book a one-on-one. If you follow that link and you make an appointment, then it's just a really easy way to get to know someone in the community, and also hear more about EA ideas if you're uncertain. So those are the main things we do at Effective Altruism Unimelb. Very broadly speaking, we're essentially a community of people who are interested in these ideas, interested in wanting to make the world a better place, and also just like a community of people who like want to hang out with each other, is what I would say. Anyway, moving on, next slide. So just to make it really explicit in terms of next steps, if you've come along tonight and you're kind of like, oh, this club sounds cool, like I would be interested in learning more about the ideas or learning more about the club or getting to know some of the people, here are the next steps. But before I get into them, I've just got Hugo here. Hugo, are you here?
Hello all.
So Hugo's from One for the World, which I guess is, I said sister club before, but it feels weird. Anyway, they're from a related club at Melbourne University to Effective Altruism, and he's just going to give a quick explanation of his club because you might be interested.
Yes. Well, it's not, it's not my club. It's our club, really, Pat. It's lovely to see so many new faces here, and it's great that Effective Altruism and those ideas have so much interest. And essentially, I think what One for the World offers is it's a very similar club. The main sort of difference is we try to advocate giving 1% of your postgraduate income to highly effective charities. With the idea being it's not going to make that much difference for you. You can easily live on 99% of your income, but obviously the difference it's going to make for someone living in extreme poverty is life-changing. And we just try and spread that message sort of as far as we can, and get as many people exposed to it, because we find often when people hear about it, they it's like, yeah, I've been thinking that all along. I just haven't heard it sort of articulated. So a lot of what we do is tabling, where we get people to come along and we sort of just give them the pitch. They get to ask questions, very sort of relaxed social sort of thing. And we also, same as Effective Altruism, run socials. So if anyone here is interested in a more sort of practical approach, if they want to get involved in donating themselves, get out there on the floor helping, One for the World is a great way to do that. And if you do want to learn more, we're having an introductory picnic on Tuesday next week. It's up on the One for the World Facebook page. So if you want to check that out, it's on Tuesday from 2 to 6 p.m. We'll have some free pizza and we might go to the pub afterwards as well. Should be pretty good. So we'd love to see some of you there. I'll hand it back to the third straight white male here, Pat.
All right, awesome. Thanks, Hugo. Really appreciate how you compare EA to One for the World by saying One for the World is more practical. Really makes me feel good about what we're doing here at the club.
The strength of our partnership shines through.
Yeah,
and you know that all I mean it as complimentary, Pat.
Okay. All right, awesome. Anyway, so in terms of next steps, we're going to have a pub night on next Tuesday, the 9th of March, same day as the One for the World picnic at the Clyde Hotel, which is near uni. So I think that's going to start at 5 p.m. We're going to be in the beer garden. So if you want to come and meet the community, that should be a good time to do it. We've got fellowship applications due on Friday, the 12th of March. So that's the end of next week. So if you are interested in learning more about these ideas, the fellowship is the main educational program that we're running. So if you are interested in the ideas and you have the time to commit, that's definitely the best way. And finally, in terms of next steps, book a one-on-one, come and talk to us. We would love to give you personal advice or just chat to you and get to know you. So that is all from me. I believe what we are going to do now is we're going to get into some breakout rooms. So we're going to have a mix of EAs. So I see we've got a few EAs in the call now. So we've got Max, who's our events director. We've got Stella, who's our treasurer, Hugo, and we've got Charles as well. And we're just going to break into rooms and have a chat. And this is the time where if you have any questions about what we're talking about today, it'd be a really good time to ask them. So we'll go into breakout rooms for maybe like 10 minutes or so. We'll see how it's going, and then we'll come back and everyone can